Catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.
What do tech lawyers do? All of this and more I will be discussing with my guest today, Esther, who is a skilled and ambitious legal and compliance officer with Quick Law. And she also has a growing interest in regulatory compliance, legal advisory, and in tech law and company representation. Hi, Esther.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. I know we've been trying to get hold of you, but this internet thing just seems to have its way.
Yes.
So how is it going?
Well,
how are you?
Very well, thank God. Doing well.
So I can see, let me ask you, let me not just suggest or jump to conclusion. On a rate of 1 to 10, that's you checking the skill and 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how are you feeling today?
I think presently I feel a bit overwhelmed, especially a few minutes to this call. My internet and everything seems to everything just went haywire. And I think it just puts me on the edge. But any which way, I'm here, and I think I'm a bit calmer now since things are a bit restored. Yeah. And I think I'm good to go.
So for your mood, to get your mood back, would you like to join me in the exercise of doing Husa?
That would be nice.
Please, let's do that. I need all of you here. Let's go. So 1, 2, 3, go. Husa. I'm sure you did that.
Yeah, I did.
So what was the first thing you said this morning? Aside you feeling this way now, what was the first thing you said this morning?
Thank you, Jesus.
Interesting. Also, these are random questions just before we push into the main question, because I want your mood to come back to being elevated. So, aside the first thing you said this morning, what's your relationship with technology?
Well, I'll say maybe 70%, because I think I'm trying my best to get aligned with every form of technology that comes my way, especially when it comes to gadgets, and to know more about what has put it together, what is keeping it going, what we can sustain it, and what other opportunities are opened using such gadgets. So yes, I think I would give myself maybe a 60 to 70, but I think that is it a little.
I want to believe you're gradually building a healthy relationship. That's it. You're on the way.
Yeah. So the gradual process.
So what's the myth you hold about lawyers, or you'd like to misconception you'd like to correct that people hold about lawyers?
I think a major misconception I would love to correct about lawyers is that lawyers are liars. And that is not true. The true aspect of the fact that lawyers are liars is the fact that there are a lot of laws that could always back anybody up. And also, nobody is guilty until proven guilty. So you might think you have a case, and if you are not able to defend the case that you have, then there's little or nothing that can be done. So it is your evidence, your supporting documents that can help to defend whatever case you think you have against another person. And by the time the case doesn't come out in your favor, you come out to say, oh, lawyers are liars. Well, I don't want to use the word losers, but I think it is the fact that a lot of people don't have an idea of the laws, the regulations that backs each incidences they find themselves. A lot of people are ignorant of a lot of laws, a lot of regulations, and because of that, they are not aware of what in whatever case or matter they have, or they want to make, or they want to settle legally. So when they don't have enough cases or anything to back them, they come out to say lawyers are liars, which I don't think is right. Is a right presumption or assumption about lawyers.
I mean, even if we keep going about the fact that people have this misconception, one conception about lawyers these days is that we see the rise of them in the technology sector, and undeniable. The tech startups and maybe long established companies actually need a lawyer behind them right now. So
Yes.
I'd want to ask, so which type of technology related legal matters do tech lawyers take up?
Well, I'll say lawyers are not limited to the kind of technology matters they take up, because for each individual or company that approaches a legal practitioner, there are always different matters that come up. So you never know which one exactly might come up at each time. However, there could be instances of intellectual property, there could be instances of cybersecurity, there could be instances of company registration, there could be instances of employment contracts. There could be different instances, so they are not limited. So lawyers are not limited. Yes, you might have your scope of practice, or you might have your niche of practice which you are an expert at, but lawyers are generally not limited to the areas of technology which they can expand their horizon to.
I like the fact that you mentioned the intellectual property protection and all of that stuff, because I spoke about the recent story around Apple being sued for collecting too much user data and also monetizing it. So now, speaking of intellectual property, which is actually a big area for tech companies want to have like a lawyer or attorney that will be able to protect their intellectual property from theft and knockoff, and also from cyber criminals. So what are protocols for protection of intellectual properties, licensing, copyright, and of course trademark for these technology legal actions?
Okay, first, before you can bring up a legal action on intellectual property, then you must be sure that you are duly registered, and that the idea you want to sue another person for that is truly being infringed on. For example, you have an idea for an app and you are very sure that it's solely your idea, and before you know it, somebody else is using it. You must be sure that it was firstly initiated by you. There are some instances under the regulation that you might not have registered it and still be able to sue the other person, whereas there are instances whereby you must have initiated a registration with the government before you can claim rights on it.
Speaking of the government,
for example,
are there like intellectual property laws that guide all of this?
Yes, there are intellectual property laws that guide companies, individuals on registration. Yes, their copyrights, on what guides them. We have the Patent and Designs Act for the laws of the Federation of Nigeria. We have the Trademark Act. We have the Copyright Act. And of late, the Startup Act was signed into law. So these are things that companies need to familiarize themselves with and be sure that they are in tune and on track with all these laws and regulations, so that they themselves are not running foul of them. That is one. Also, if somebody is infringing on their rights, they know what to do and what not to do in terms of damages, in terms of gaining their rights or in terms of getting their rights back and having access to it.
I mean, I'm just thinking while you're saying all of this, like we see the government passing bills and of course passing guidelines and of course all of this framework for the use of technology. I'm just thinking, in understanding this bill, what are the implications as a lawyer? Like when you look into it for a company, what are the implications of passing technology related bills?
I think one of the things that it does, that it helps put companies in check. I think there's an adage that says that where there is no law, there is no offense. So when government puts in place laws, regulations to guide companies, no matter the industry you find yourself, is it fintech, is it in fashion, is in agriculture, is in manufacturing, whatever industry, is in advertising, is in entertainment, whatever industry you find yourself, when there are laws and regulations guiding you, you know what to put out and what not to put out. You know to what extent you can put out some product. You know, one thing with being with the technology industry is that our minds is very creative. So there's this eagerness. This thing comes to mind, and boom, you're fast in seeing how you can create a product around it. You're fast to see how you can push it out to monetize it. But in the course of you wanting to monetize it, you are not thinking of the detrimental effect of the product that it might have on the users. And that's one of the things that the government comes to do. It comes to put you in check. So you know to what extent you can go with whatever products you are bringing out. You know to what extent your consumers, your customers can use the product. For example, we see what is happening with cryptocurrency at the moment. You know, when the Nigerian government was against it, we were all angry, we were all furious. Yes, because we are young minds, or a creative mind has brought out crypto. What is happening? Why is the Nigerian government against it? But now we can see the fallback of what is happening on it, on a lot of businesses, on a lot of startups that are putting their investment in it. You know, these are things that the government is there for, to put checks. We'll call it checks and balances. Because we're not, the laws and regulations are not against you being creative. They are not against you being innovative. All they want you to do is to be checked, don't go beyond the limit at which it will have detrimental effect on your consumers, and that is the major aspect for the corporate governance.
I mean, when you look at all of this, the sole aim is to help your clients make sure they are in order and they are doing things appropriately, which makes me wonder what type of clients that you typically take on or provide technology-related legal advice to.
Well, we are not limited to the clients that we take in.
So you take from
startups, clients, yes, from every industry. Also, people who just we call them startups generally, who are just birthing their idea, who just want to register their complaints, who just want to register their ideas, their intellectual property, who wants to ensure that they're in check, their compliance aspects, their tax regulations. So we're not limited to the people we take up. We take up both the startups, those businesses who are already running, also businesses who want to expand, businesses who also want to raise funds and are looking for ways to be in check of the of how to present themselves to their investors. So we take in as all of these categories.
Can I ask you, Esther, please, what sparked your interest into tech? Like deciding you want to be a tech lawyer? I mean, because if you ask people going to school and they're studying law, they're mostly looking for how they're going to work in one of the big high courts and all of that. So what spiked your interest into becoming a tech lawyer?
I think one thing for a young person is, as you grow, you must learn to start to look beyond the four walls of your school. I've always known that I didn't want to go to court. That I'd always known.
Is there a particular incident that made you decide that no, I'm not going to be queuing up at the court?
Okay, I think it was during one of my internship when I was still in university, and the hustle of sitting down in the court from morning till evening, waiting for the judge to call your case, and then adjournment of the matter for weeks, for months, for years. And I'm like, why do we have to stay this long on one matter? I'm the kind of person that, this is the problem. What is the solution? Now, next step. So me having to sit for that long, it actually didn't make so much sense to me. So gradually, by the time I finished university, I started to. I'm still a work in progress. I won't say I've gotten to my final bus stop. So gradually, this field started to open up, and I realized that it was an area I wanted to build myself on and get acquainted on, and also be an expert in.
So what was the process like for you finding your way from that law field, like deciding to segue into tech law? What was the process you took into becoming a tech lawyer?
I think the major process is you must have an open mind. The open mind to learn from both those practicing, going to court, we call them litigation lawyers, who are doing that, and also be willing to learn from the young minds coming, be willing to learn from your colleagues, be willing to go to the internet and read as wide as you can, be willing to take on courses, occasionally, go on Coursera, go on Udemy, just go on those platforms. There are knowledge you can always pick up from those platforms that adds up to whatever you are doing each day and each time that you're in the journey.
So what are mostly the challenges that you've taken up and that either fuel you or make you decide that, or make you think that, why did I move into tech law?
I think the challenges majorly is sometimes fitting in clients' expectations to the government regulations. There are times that a client wants this, whereas the regulation is not so straightforward to fitting into that. So you have to sit down with it, study it, and know how to bring both to be on the middle ground of both the government's expectations and your client's expectations. It's a tedious process, but with time, when you're able to learn from others, it becomes a walk in the park.
Interesting. I mean, tech law is gradually rising, and we cannot deny the fact that everyone needs a lawyer. And of course, choosing specialization within the tech field is also one thing. I'm just wrapping this up with how lawyers are also looking into government and private sector policies, because I had a conversation with someone on this regulation and policy framework. So how do you help them get a good stand with the government? Is there a process for this, like a negotiation process, a contract binding process? What goes into it?
Okay. A lot of times you have to learn to sit on the table with the government. They let you know what they want, and you present to them what are your expectations. But don't be too rigid as a company, not to want to bend a little bit, because most of the time the government will not bend. So we must learn to negotiate with them to the point whereby we are able to liaise to fit into our own expectations. It's always a tedious process, but when you understand what the government wants, as a company also, you just ensure that whatever you are presenting to them is something they are able to buy into and they are able to support you on.
So I'm going to wrap this up. I know you are working with Quick Law. I'd like you to give us a brief of what Quick Law is all about, and the people that are interested in stuff that Quick Law provides, services that Quick Law provides.
Okay, Quick Law is an advisory legal company for startups, and like I mentioned earlier, for all stages of businesses and companies. And we are here to help in your company registration, ensure that you are in line with all that is expected of you from the corporate governance. Yeah. We are also here to ensure that you avoid all risk-related issues that may arise from ensuring that you are compliant with all that the government is expecting of you. So we are your advisory company for your governance, for your risk, and for your compliance. So we ensure that all your agreements, all your registration, all your licensing, all your contracts, that everything are in track. And that is one major thing that Quick Law is there for you. And one thing is that our services are quick and affordable for all stages and levels of businesses and companies.
I like the fact that you mentioned that your services are quick, because at the end of the day, it was Quick Law. All right. So, would you share with us like social media handles or websites that they can check you on?
Yes, they can check on www.quicklaw.ng.
How about social media?
Yes, all our social media handles at quicklaw.ng. On Instagram, on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn too. Yes, and you can also reach us via email info@quicklaw.ng.
All right. Thank you so much, Esther. It's really an amazing time with you. For the past few minutes, I think I've learned one or two things that I could actually run with, and of course, my listeners have also learned something. And probably for those who are looking to go into tech law, what would your advice be to maybe a techie that is looking to delve into tech law or diversify into tech law?
Well, I would say that be open-minded and be willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. There are a lot of things you would learn. You unlearn a lot of things because there are a lot of things that you've learned before that you need to unlearn. Yes, that you need to unlearn and learn a better way to do them. So you must have an open mind. Also, you have to know your regulations.
Okay.
You have to know your regulations. And don't think that coming into tech law excludes you from the law. No, that's when you really need to dive deep into the regulations and know what the law is saying. Be able to interpret it for every different situations that come your way.
All right, interesting. Thank you so much, Esther, for that advice. I'm sure they'll definitely look into that because I do not want to be a tech lawyer. Well, I'm sure it's an interesting sector. Thank you so much for your time on Cruise Control.
Thank you so much, Buki. I appreciate this. So please, everyone, keep in mind, Quick Law is the name.
All right. And that's it, guys. From Esther, you've heard what tech law is all about. The prospect of having a Nigerian tech lawyer behind you to bend the rules, to be able to break the rules, to be able to break down the laws, and to be able to put you on the right guideline path with the government and private sector.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.